All right. So the first round of the NFL draft, I think it's officially like a month away as of today or yesterday. And it's not a particularly strong draft. It's not a great quarterback draft. But the last couple of years, there have been an abundance of Michigan Wolverines, speaking of big brands, in the first round. So this year, they got a tight end, a corner, and 2 defensive tackles, could all go in the first round. And the Pittsburgh Steelers could use some of those players. But the Pittsburgh Steelers staff skipped the Michigan Pro Day. That's a big deal. They all skipped it to stay home and interview Aaron Rodgers and try to talk him into becoming a Steeler. And he went, and he interviewed, and he left, and there's no contract. So, and I'll say this. If you do not take quarterback seriously, like Pete Carroll in Seattle, Geno's good enough. Not really with that roster, he's not. Sam Howell's good enough. Ron Rivera, not really. Mason Rudolph, good enough. Not really. This is Pittsburgh's fault. And by the way, I really do wonder what Aaron's thinking, because the Steelers' offensive line was bad, and then they lost their left tackle. And Najee Harris, who came out this weekend and said, yeah, Pittsburgh's offense, it's frustrating. There's no identity. They also lead the league again in defensive spending. And they spent $150 million on DK Metcalf, so they have 2 needy, combustible wide receivers who sort of have the same game, both want the ball, and they have no quarterback. So I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking to myself over the weekend, there's a reason Aaron Rodgers was waiting and waiting. He wanted Minnesota, excellent offensive coach, superstar wide receiver who doesn't complain much, upgraded their offensive line very well in free agency. Aaron wanted to go to Minnesota. Knew the division, closer to Malibu, closer to home. He wanted to go to Minnesota. And what he's doing, he's treating the Steelers like they need him more than he needs them, and Aaron Rodgers is right. I looked it up this morning. Even with California taxes, he's got a net worth probably of $300 million, first ballot Hall of Famer, 41-year-old guy with a lot of interests. I've said this before. Minnesota, I would have stuck around for. Giants was interesting because of the coach and left tackle and weapon. I think Pittsburgh is fool's gold for a quarterback. Go ask Russell Wilson. It was a mess by the end of the year. Go ask Mason Rudolph, old Big Ben. It's fool's gold. The Steelers are 29th in touchdown passes with a variety of quarterbacks since 2021. Think about this. That's fewer than the Patriots, the Raiders, and the Bears. I mean, come on now. We're getting into Carolina categories. So I think Aaron Rodgers, if he signs anywhere, it will be Pittsburgh. But I think there's a reason people wait to take a job offer, because they have questions. It could be my kids. It could be your kids. It could be you. It could be Aaron Rodgers. He's sitting around. He's like, their offensive line's a mess, and they may have just lost their best offensive lineman and their best running back. And I met with a coordinator. He's fine, not special. It's a defensive culture, tone-deaf offense, and 2 wide receivers that are talented, but both want the ball and both have proven to be combustible. So in this instance, I think Aaron's on the right side. I think he wanted to go to Minnesota. He would consider San Francisco if the Brock Purdy thing didn't work. I think he wants to keep his options out there. I don't think that's necessarily a bad plan. But just to give you a sense, Pittsburgh kept all their staff home instead of going to the Michigan Wolverine Pro Day, and they have 4 first-rounders, and they could certainly use some help.